Helion's glass doors reflected the morning sun like polished armor, cold, bright, daunting. Mina paused at the base of the steps, fingers tightening around the strap of her bag. It felt surreal to walk back into the same building that had once humiliated her, accused her, torn her apart from the inside. Another woman might have turned around. But Mina inhaled, squared her shoulders, and moved forward. She wasn't the same woman who had walked out with shaking hands and a broken heart. She wasn't the same woman who had cried all night whispering questions into the dark about why she had trusted, why she had let herself hope. Now she walked not with fear, but with truth behind her and Alexander beside her. Because he was waiting, right inside the lobby. And when their eyes met, no mask, no distance, no walls. Mina felt something in her chest unfold, like a quiet, persistent light. Alexander crossed the space between them in a few long strides, his expression softening only for her. He didn't touch her, though every muscle in him seemed to want to. Instead, he simply said, "Welcome back." 2 words low and gentle, but they settled into Mina's bones like a promise. Around them whispers flew like sparks. That's her. After that investigation, she's the one who... No, she was framed. Didn't you read the report? He's meeting her personally. Oh, so the rumors were real. Mina heard every piece of it. She didn't flinch. Alexander glanced at the onlookers, a hard edge in his jaw, then returned his attention to her alone. "If this is too much, we can go upstairs," he said quietly. "No," Mina murmured. "Let them look. They'll look regardless." A flicker of pride crossed his face, pride in her strength, pride that she was the woman beside him, though he still wasn't allowed to show it. They walked together toward the elevators, side by side, close but not touching, a parallel line of longing. It was torture. It was perfect. Inside the elevator, Mina finally exhaled. The door closed, muffling the world outside. Alexander turned slightly, studying her like he was memorizing every detail to make up for every hour he had spent fearing she would never come back. "How are you?" he asked. Her lips curved subtly. "Standing." "That's not an answer. It's the only one I have right now." He nodded, accepting it, but something in his eyes dimmed with quiet worry. He wanted to fix everything. She needed to fix herself first. It was a delicate line neither of them had words for yet. The elevator chimed at the executive floor. As they walked out, Alexander kept just half a step behind her, not out of dominance, but out of silent support. A shadow of protection he wasn't allowed to wear openly. And Mina felt it, every step, every breath of him at her back. She felt safer than she wanted to admit. Her office had been cleaned, new keycard issued, new laptop already set up. A vase of lilies, her favorite, rested on the table. It took her 1 second to know exactly who sent them, even before she saw the tiny note tucked into the stems for a new beginning. A. She pressed her lips together to keep from smiling. As she sat down, the weight of returning pressed against her ribs, not painful, but heavy with responsibility. Heavy with the need to prove she belonged here on her own merits. No favoritism, no whispers, no shadows cast by the man she loved. She forced that thought away. The word love still felt too fragile, too bright to stare at directly. She opened her laptop. The moment it booted, an email notification popped up. Meeting with finance, 10 a.m. Lead, Jonas Hale. Her brows knit. She didn't know the name. But at exactly 10 a.m., she walked into the conference room and met the man who would become the spark of the next storm. Jonas Hale stood with the confidence of someone who never had to fight for a place at the table. Tall, impeccably pressed shirt sleeves rolled neatly to the forearms, dark hair styled with effortless precision. His smile was warm, practiced, polished. But his eyes were sharp, cold, measuring. "Ms. Campbell," he said, voice smooth, like polished stone. "I've heard impressive things about you." Mina nodded politely. "We'll see if I live up to them." His smile widened. "Oh, I'm sure you will." He didn't blink. He didn't look away. Not even when Alexander stepped into the meeting moments later. For a split second, something electric and dark passed through Jonas's gaze. A flicker of rivalry. Not professional, personal. Alexander's expression didn't change, but something inside him did a quiet tightening Mina could sense even without looking at him. Throughout the meeting, Jonas asked Mina subtle questions. Not invasive, but oddly intimate. What inspired her analytical approach? Why she chose Helion over other offers? Whether she liked working directly with leadership? It felt like he wasn't just gathering data. He was studying her. Mina tried to interpret it as professional curiosity, but unease pricked beneath her skin. Alexander noticed every shift in her posture. When the meeting ended, Jonas lingered near her. Very near. "You handled the projections well," he said softly. "Thank you," Mina replied, stepping back, not rude but firm. Jonas's eyes flickered with something unreadable. Alexander waited at the doorway, jaw tight as steel. Later that evening, Alexander approached Mina as she gathered her things. "Can I ask you something?" he said, voice carefully even. "Of course." "What do you think of Jonas?" She blinked. The question came out of nowhere. "He seems competent," she said. "Polite. Nothing unusual." Alexander's lips pressed into a line. "He's not just polite, and he's not harmless." Mina tilted her head. "You sound like you already dislike him." "I do." No hesitation. "Alex, I can handle polite coworkers," she said lightly. But Alexander didn't smile, didn't soften. Polite men with sharp eyes are the ones you watch the closest. Mina opened her mouth to respond, maybe to tease him for being jealous, maybe to ease the tension, but her voice froze when she glanced down the hall. Jonas stood at the far end, leaning casually against the wall, arms crossed. But his eyes were fixed on her, and Alexander, like a predator watching prey. Cold, calculating, quietly furious. Mina's pulse jumped. Alexander followed her gaze. His entire body went rigid, chin lifting in warning. Jonas didn't move. He simply watched, and smiled slow and razor thin. A chill snaked down Mina's spine. In that single unsettling moment, she understood something. Gwen had been a challenge, but Jonas was a threat, a real one. And whatever game he was playing, she had just become the center of it. Gwen's termination made headlines for 2 days, then vanished from public memory, as if she had never existed. Inside Helion, however, her absence felt like a rearranged gravitational field. Someone powerful had been removed, leaving a vacuum waiting to be claimed. Jonas Hale stepped into that vacuum with effortless grace. No announcement, no ceremony. One morning, he simply appeared at the end of the executive floor, reviewing files Gwen once hoarded, wearing a calm expression that made the room hold its breath. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't insult anyone. He didn't make the rookie mistake of attacking Mina in public. No, Jonas played a longer, quieter game. He adjusted workflow expectations to increase efficiency. He restructured project timelines to match market volatility. He redistributed responsibilities to optimize talent alignment. Each change looked reasonable on paper. Each change also pushed an impossible workload directly onto Mina's desk. Alexander noticed first. What the hell is this? She can't complete the entire predictive suite alone. His voice was sharp in the Monday briefing. Jonas merely smiled. Ms. Campbell assured me she's capable. I trust her expertise. Alexander looked at Mina, then eyes questioning, frustrated, worried. But Mina sat straighter. I can handle it. His jaw flexed. At the end of the meeting, he approached her alone. Mina, this is sabotage. No, she said, even though her hands trembled. This is a challenge, and I can overcome it. This isn't about ability. It's about endurance. It's designed to break you. I won't break. He exhaled harshly. You shouldn't have to prove anything anymore. Mina met his gaze firm but soft. I'm not proving it for them, Alex. I'm proving it for me. And that was the first hairline crack. Not an argument, not anger, but a quiet collision of two people trying to protect each other in opposite ways. Alexander wanted to shield her. Mina wanted to stand tall without a shield. Neither was wrong. Neither was willing to bend yet. The following weeks drowned Mina in deadlines. Midnight merged with dawn. Coffee cups multiplied like ghosts. The city outside the floor-to-ceiling windows glittered, taunting her with a life she no longer had time to live. Jonas visited her workstation often, too often. He leaned on her desk with casual concern, like someone rehearsed in emotional manipulation. You're doing beautifully, he said one evening as she massaged her temple. Thank you, she murmured, not looking up. But tell me, Mina. His voice dropped lower, coaxing. Isn't it exhausting, being known only as someone's protege? Her fingers froze over the keyboard. Is that what you think I am? She asked. Jonas smiled, gentle, sympathetic, deadly. I think you deserve a place where your light isn't overshadowed. A place where you aren't someone's attachment. There it was, the subtle toxin, the insinuation she had feared since the beginning. Mina inhaled slowly. I'm here because I earned my place, nothing more. I don't doubt that Jonas said, eyes glinting. But others might. He left before she could answer, leaving the words to gnaw at her resolve. Others might. She knew exactly what others meant. She had lived her whole life pushing against that others. 2 nights later, Mina worked until her vision blurred. She didn't notice how her shoulders slumped, how her breath came shallow, how the screen glow made her look fragile instead of fierce. But Alexander noticed. He found her asleep in a dark conference room, cheek pressed against a folder pen still in hand. For a moment, he simply stood there, something raw tightening in his chest. Not anger, not disappointment, something closer to heartbreak. He walked to her slowly, quietly, as if approaching a wounded creature. He shrugged off his blazer and draped it around her shoulders. She stirred at the warmth, eyelashes fluttering. Alex, she whispered, still half asleep. You shouldn't be here, he murmured. I know. You're pushing too hard. I know. He crouched beside her, brushing a stray curl from her face. Then why won't you let me help? Mina closed her eyes, exhausted beyond pride. Because if I let you protect me from everything, I'll never know what I'm capable of on my own. Alexander's breath caught because she was right. Because her strength was the thing he loved most about her. Because helping her meant risking robbing her of that strength. But seeing her like this, fragile, drained, hurting, tore something in him. Mina, he said softly, I don't want to stop you from becoming everything you can be. I just want to make sure you don't destroy yourself getting there. Her heart twisted. She reached for his hand, fingers barely brushing his. I'm tired, Alex, she whispered. But I'm not tired of this, of us. I just need to prove that I belong here without anyone wondering why. His thumb stroked her knuckles, slow and grounding. You do belong here. Not because of me, never because of me. She leaned into his chest, her forehead resting right above his heart. The steady rhythm soothed her, tightening the threads between them that had begun to fray. I know, she said. Truly. Alexander wrapped an arm around her, protective but gentle, the way he held things precious. Then let me keep you upright while you fight. Let me be your anchor, not your shield. It was a small promise, but it healed something big. The tension between them dissolved into quiet, into warmth, into the profound comfort of knowing they were still pulling toward each other, not apart. But someone else watched that moment. From the hallway, hidden by shadows and distance, Jonas stood perfectly still. Expression unreadable. Eyes cold. He watched Mina in Alexander's arms, watched her exhaustion, watched the tenderness between them. And he smiled. Not warmly, not kindly. A slow, knowing, satisfied smile. Because a tired Mina was a vulnerable Mina. And a vulnerable Mina was exactly the Mina he needed. The cracks in her armor had begun to show just as Jonas intended. And in the quiet of the executive floor, he whispered to no one. Soon, happiness, Mina realized, was quiet. Not loud the way movies promised, not glittering or triumphant. Real happiness hid in soft places, the warmth of a hand brushing hers in the dark, the steam from a shared bowl of pasta, the sound of Alexander's laugh when he burned the garlic again. Their relationship lived in the off hours, the unguarded minutes neither of them used to believe they were allowed to have. In Mina's small kitchen, Alexander rolled up his sleeves and insisted he knew how to make risotto. He didn't. The rice clumped, the pan nearly smoked, and he cursed under his breath in a way that made Mina double over laughing. "You think this is funny?" he asked, feigning indignation, as he stirred the disastrous mixture. "You promised you were good at this," Mina teased, bumping his hip gently. "I lied," he admitted, "but I hoped I'd be less terrible." "You are terrible," she confirmed, smiling, "but charming about it." He leaned in, brushing a kiss to her cheek. "Only for you." Later they curled on Mina's couch, her head on his shoulder, while some old film flickered across the screen. Alexander's fingers stroked absent-mindedly through her curls, and Mina thought, so this is what he looks like when the world isn't watching. Not the CEO with a frozen jaw. Not the billionaire in tailored suits. Just a man who breathed differently when she was near. A man whose smile softened whenever she rested her hand on his chest. A man who, despite the chaos orbiting them, held her like she was the one solid thing in his life. But the world never stayed outside for long. It started with a whisper. Then another. A secretary spotted Alexander's car parked near Mina's building too late at night. A security guard saw them leaving together one morning, walking side by side, hands close enough to touch. And then the moment that cracked everything open. A Tuesday evening. An empty garage. Mina ready to go home after another exhausting day. Alexander walked her to her car. A ritual neither admitted meant everything. Before she opened the door, he brushed a kiss to her forehead, brief and tender. It was nothing. A gesture of care. A promise of safety. But a young employee, someone new, someone eager to gossip, had rounded the corner just in time. He gasped. Alexander turned. Mina froze. The employee muttered an apology and fled, but the damage was done. Rumors spread faster than wildfire. Whispers revived insults Mina thought she'd buried years ago. Suddenly, eyes followed her everywhere. Curiosity first, then envy, then malice. By noon the next day, people weren't whispering, they were deciding. She only got promoted because of him. I knew it. No one climbs that fast on merit. Pretty but ambitious classic move. She's lucky, or strategic. They didn't say black woman. They didn't have to. The tone told the whole story. Mina heard pieces of it drifting through hallways, slipping under doors, sticking in her hair like ash. She kept her chin high, but every word scraped at the fragile places she tried so hard to protect. And Jonas moved among the gossip like a conductor guiding a poisoned symphony. He never said anything directly. He didn't have to. "A shame, isn't it?" he murmured to a group near the break room. "Talented, yes. But now people will question everything she does. Or, if only she didn't have that connection. She could have built her career clean. independent. Or, Alexander is a powerful man. Some women fall for power even without meaning to. He always said it casually, sympathetically, as though he were on Mina's side. He was anything but. That night, the whispers finally reached her breaking point. Mina went home early, dropped her keys on the table, and sank onto the bed without even removing her shoes. Something in her chest tightened, not sharp, but crushing, like she couldn't breathe right. She hated that she cared. Hated that strangers could wound her so easily. Hated that her achievements were being rewoven into a narrative she had fought her whole life to escape. She didn't realize she was crying until her breath hitched. Alexander knocked once gently, always gently before stepping inside. He froze when he saw her curled on the bed, shoulders shaking. Mina. He was beside her in 2 strides. She pressed her face into his shirt, voice cracking. I hate it. I hate all of it. His arms wrapped around her, instantly folding her against him, like he could shield her from the entire city. They're saying things again, she whispered, breaking. About me. About us. Alexander's grip tightened. Say the word and I'll shut every single one of them down. No. She shook her head against him. If you defend me, it'll only make it worse. They'll think I need you to clean up my messes. Mina. He murmured, cupping her face to make her look at him. You don't need me to fix anything, but I want to make sure you aren't hurting alone. She inhaled sharply. I'm so tired of being questioned, of fighting for every inch of respect. And now, because I'm with you, it's like all my work means less. Alexander's eyes softened with a pain she knew wasn't for himself, but entirely for her. None of them know you like I do. None of them see what I see. She laughed, a broken, strained sound. And what do you see? He didn't hesitate. I see brilliance, he whispered. Strength. Fire. A woman who built herself from the ground up, who earned every step she climbed, who makes me proud every single damn day. Mina's lips trembled. Then why does it feel like the world is determined to tear me down? His thumb brushed her cheek, wiping away a tear. Because you're rising. And people who can't rise with you will always try to drag you back. She leaned into him, letting his warmth steady her, letting the truth of his voice soften the trembling inside her chest. Alex. She breathed a plea and a confession. I'm here, he whispered back, forehead resting against hers. I'm not going anywhere. Her hands clutched his shirt. I love what we have. I don't want to lose it. You won't. His voice cracked just barely. Not to them. Not ever. And for a moment, the world outside didn't matter. For a moment, her shaking stopped. For a moment, she felt whole again. But neither of them realized someone else had heard. Outside the conference room earlier that day, Jonas had paused behind a cracked door. He hadn't meant to eavesdrop, but when he saw Alexander follow, Mina, curiosity pulled him closer. He heard every word. He heard her pain. He heard Alexander's promises. He heard the vulnerability between them, the hairline fracture Jonas had been waiting for. When he stepped away from the door, his expression was no longer polite or charming. It was triumphant, a soft, dangerous triumph. Because now, Jonas knew exactly where the crack in their perfect little secret lay, and he planned to tear it wide open. Jonas Hale had always felt like an enigma, too polished, too patient, too quietly observant. But Mina never imagined how deep his shadow stretched back into the past, or how close it had slithered to her without her noticing. The truth came to light, not in an explosion, but in fragments. Documents Alexander uncovered late one night, records of Jonas's consulting work for Linkstech years ago, files linking him to internal audits, psychological assessments, and strategic restructuring. All normal on the surface. Until Alexander saw her name, buried inside Gwen's reports. Gwen, bitter and reckless, had not masterminded Mina's downfall alone. She'd been groomed, guided, manipulated by Jonas. The realization hit Alexander like a blade. He stood alone in his office. The lights dimmed, the city shimmering below like fractured glass. Jonas hadn't stepped into Gwen's position by chance. He had stepped into place, into proximity, into power. And suddenly Mina was no longer simply dealing with workplace tension. She was in the crosshairs of a man who knew exactly how to dismantle careers, reputations, and people. Mina learned none of this before the night Jonas confronted her. She had stayed late again, exhaustion clinging to her like damp air. Trying to finish the impossible deliverables, Jonas kept slipping onto her plate. The building was half dark, the hallways silent except for the low hum of the ventilation system. She gathered her laptop and stood ready to head home when the conference room door clicked closed behind her. She turned sharply. Jonas was blocking the exit. The air grew thin. "Jonas," she said slowly, "I didn't know anyone else was still on this floor." "I'm always around," he replied, stepping closer. "Especially when I see someone working themselves into the ground." Her pulse ticked upward. "I was just leaving." "I know." Jonas took another step forward. "That's why I came." Mina stiffened. "Let me by." He didn't move. Instead, he leaned against the door, as if settling in for a conversation Mina never wanted to have. "You're too smart," Jonas murmured, "to tie your entire future to Alexander Roth." Her breath caught. "This isn't your business." "Oh, but it is." Jonas's voice lowered, turning strangely soft. "You think being near him makes you stronger, but it doesn't. It makes you dependent. It makes you small." Mina's stomach twisted. "Step away, Jonas." He ignored her, continuing his slow advance like a predator, certain of the outcome. "You have brilliance, Mina. You could lead an entire division if you wanted. Build new models, influence the market, reshape the future of data analytics." His smile was thin, almost tender. "But instead you're fading under his shadow." She took one step back. He took one step forward. "Jonas, stop." "No." He breathed, eyes darkening. "You need to hear this." She reached the conference table, nowhere else to go. "Roth is wrong for you," Jonas said. "He restrains you, limits you, and you're too blinded by—" He made a soft, mocking sound, affection to see it. Mina's throat tightened with anger. "You don't know anything about us." "I know everything," Jonas answered, voice clipped. "Enough to understand your weaknesses. And his." That set every alarm bell inside her ringing. Her voice sharpened. "Move away from the door." Jonas didn't flinch. Instead, he leaned in close enough that Mina felt the coldness radiating off him. "You and I could do extraordinary things, Mina, without him holding your hand, without him dragging you down. Don't you see? You're meant for more." Her heart pounded, not with fear, but with rage. "How dare you?" she whispered. "You think belittling my relationship makes you look powerful. You think pushing me will make me follow you. You don't know me at all." Jonas's jaw flexed. "I know exactly who you are." "No," Mina snapped. "You know who you want me to be." The silence afterward was suffocating. Then, the door burst open. Alexander strode inside like a storm breaking through the walls. His eyes locked onto Jonas with a fury Mina had never seen. Not cold fury, not controlled. Raw, protective, dangerous. "Step away from her," Alexander said, voice low and lethal. Jonas shifted only slightly. Expression calm, too calm. "We were having a conversation." "No," Alexander growled. "You were cornering her." Jonas tilted his head. "She's not a prisoner. She can speak for herself." Mina stepped past Alexander, not because she didn't need him, but because she refused to let Jonas twist the narrative. Her voice was ice. "I told you to stop. You didn't." Alexander moved closer until he stood firmly in front of her, a wall of anger and resolve. Mina saw the tension in his shoulders, the whiteness of his knuckles. "I won't tell you again," Alexander said. "Move." Jonas's eyes glittered. "You can't protect her forever, Roth." "I don't need him to," Mina said sharply, stepping to Alexander's side. "But I will never allow you to disrespect me." Jonas's expression finally cracked. A flicker of surprise, then irritation, then something darker. He let out a quiet breath, almost a laugh. Courageous, predictable. He looked at Alexander. "You think you've won something here, but you haven't. The world you're trying to build with her. It won't last." Alexander took a half step forward, pulse hammering visibly at his temple. "If you threaten her, I don't need to." Jonas cut in. "You'll destroy yourselves without my help." The room went still. Jonas's smile was razor thin. "You'll lose her, Alexander, and it won't be because of me." A chill slid down Mina's spine. A warning, a prophecy, a promise. Then Jonas opened the door, stepped through and vanished into the dim hallway. Alexander closed the door behind him, breathing hard. Mina reached out, touching his arm. "Alex." He turned to her eyes, still burning. "Did he hurt you?" he demanded softly. "No," she said, "but he rattled me." Alexander exhaled, shoulders slumping for the first time. He wrapped his hands around hers, grounding himself in her touch. "I won't let him near you again." "I know," Mina whispered, "but I also won't let him come between us." Those words, gentle, fierce, unwavering, cracked something open inside him. He pulled her into his arms, holding her tight, as though the world had tried to steal her and he refused to let go. And for one suspended moment, everything else fell away. Every shadow, every threat, every whisper. Only their heartbeat remained steady, shared, unbroken. But far down the hall, Jonas paused, listened, smiled to himself. He hadn't lied. He had no intention of being the one to break them. He only intended to give them the push that might make them break themselves. Rain had been threatening the city since dawn, a gray, dull heaviness that clung to the air as Mina drove toward Helion. She was tired after another night of too late work, but her mind felt sharp-focused. She was determined not to let Jonas's confrontation rule her thoughts. She turned into the intersection when something felt wrong. The brake pedals sank under her foot with no resistance. Her heart lurched. The car slid forward, tires skidding over wet asphalt, the world blurring as she steered hard to avoid the SUV ahead. Metal shrieked. The car spun, clipped a guardrail, then jerked to a stop against the curb. Silence. Then the echo of her frantic heartbeat. She sat, frozen breath trembling. A passerby raced toward the car, asking if she was okay. Mina nodded numbly, fingers locked around the steering wheel. She tried the brakes again. Nothing. A cold realization seeped into her bones. Someone had tampered with the car. Another trap. Another warning. This time aimed at her life. 30 minutes later, Alexander burst through the emergency room doors like a man possessed. His tie hung loose. His coat was drenched with rain. He ignored every nurse who tried to stop him. "Where is she?" His voice was raw, forceful. A nurse pointed to a small exam room. "She's being checked for..." He didn't wait. He pushed inside. Mina sat on the hospital bed in a pale blue gown, rain-damp curls sticking to her cheeks. She looked up just as Alexander reached her, and the expression on his face nearly broke her. Panic, rage, fear, sharp enough to wound. "Mina. God, Mina," he stammered, gripping her shoulders as though to confirm she was real. Are you hurt? Do you feel pain anywhere? Dizzy? Did you hit your head? Let me check your pulse. He fumbled for the monitor, knocking over the cuff and sending the blood pressure machine crashing to the floor. Alex, she said softly. He didn't hear. His hands trembled as he cupped her face, checking for bruises. If something had happened. If you hadn't. If someone hadn't seen the crash. Alex, she repeated, firmer this time. His breath stopped. She lifted her hand, covering his, grounding him. I'm okay. He exhaled shakily, lowering his forehead to hers. No, you're not. Someone cut your brakes. She swallowed. I know. Mina. His voice cracked. She squeezed his fingers. I'm alive. I'm right here. But he didn't relax. His pulse fluttered wildly under her touch. He wasn't Alexander Roth, CEO of Helion, titan of industry, the man the world feared and the markets obeyed. He was a man who had almost lost the woman he loved, and he wasn't hiding it anymore. After the doctor confirmed she had only minor bruises, they moved her to a private room to rest. Rain tapped against the window, steady and soft, like the world trying to hush the storm inside them. Alexander sat beside her bed, elbows on his knees, his hands clasped so tightly the knuckles were white. Mina leaned her head on his shoulder, letting the quiet settle between them. A quiet broken only by the rain and Alexander's uneven breathing. Alex, she whispered. He didn't look at her. I can't. His voice fractured. I can't watch you get hurt. I can't pretend this is manageable. She slid her fingers into his, threading them together. Jonas did this, he said, jaw hardening. He's the only one with motive. The only one who escalated this fast. We don't have proof yet. We will. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating his face, shadows carved by fear, exhaustion, and something deeper. Something he'd tried to hide. Something he couldn't hide anymore. Mina, he whispered. If you had been 2 seconds closer to that intersection, if the other car hadn't swerved. She lifted her head, meeting his eyes. I'm here. But you almost weren't. The words fell heavy between them. Mina reached up, brushing the wet strand of hair still clinging to his forehead. Alex. His eyes lifted to hers. And suddenly, his fear broke open. Mina, he said, voice low and raw. I love you. She froze. For a heartbeat, the world stilled. The rain fell silent. Her lungs refused to move. Time suspended itself in the small room. You. Her voice came out barely audible. You love me. He nodded once, but fiercely, like a vow. I've loved you longer than I should admit, before I knew how to handle it, before I understood what it meant, before I had the right to. Her breath hitched. I didn't say it because I knew it would make you a target, he continued, voice breaking. And I was right. But today I thought I'd lost you, and I realized hiding it doesn't protect you. He closed his eyes, forehead resting against hers. Hiding it only keeps me from telling you the truth. Mina raised her hand to his cheek, her thumb brushing the stubble there. He leaned into the touch like a man starved for warmth. Alex, she whispered, her heart swelling painfully. I love you too. His eyes opened slowly, disbelieving, like he needed to see the truth in her face to believe it. You, his voice faltered. You do. She smiled, exhausted, bruised, aching, but radiant. Of course I do. Even if you are the most dangerous thing to ever happen to my life. He let out a broken laugh, one hand lifting to cradle her jaw. Then we're even. Because loving you has undone every rule I ever lived by. He kissed her gently, reverently, as though she might break beneath his lips. It wasn't a passionate, consuming kiss. It was a fragile one. A first confession sealed with trembling breaths and damp eyelashes. A promise held between heartbeats. A vow whispered without words. When they parted, Mina rested her forehead against his collarbone, listening to the fierce rhythm of his heart. Outside the door, footsteps splashed in the hallway. Someone paused, watching, listening. Rainwater dripped from a coat. A shadow darkened the frosted glass window on the door. Jonas. His silhouette stood unmoving, shoulders rigid, head tilted slightly, as if witnessing something he believed should have been his. The outline of his face was unreadable, but his stillness felt like fury, like betrayal, like a fuse burning unseen. He watched Mina and Alexander wrapped in each other's arms, the soft glow of the bedside lamp illuminating their closeness, and his jaw clenched. Then slowly, he turned and walked back down the hall. The rain swallowed him. The storm outside intensified. And for the first time, Alexander and Mina were too lost in each other to notice the danger standing inches away. But Jonas had seen enough. More than enough. The truth was out. The confession was real. And in Jonas Hale's mind, that was the moment the game truly began. The morning after Mina's accident, Helion's headquarters felt heavier than any storm outside. The air buzzed with an odd electric stillness, like the building itself sensed something inevitable approaching. Alexander stood in the center of his office, phone in hand, eyes burning with a fury he no longer bothered to hide. Last night had stripped away every layer of restraint he'd ever learned. Mina's pale face in that hospital bed had seared itself into his memory so deeply he could still taste the fear. Someone had tried to kill her, and Alexander Roth did not forgive threats. Begin a full internal investigation, he told Jennifer from legal, his voice clipped as polished steel. No filters, no permissions. Root level. I want everything Jonas Hale has touched in this building. Jennifer blinked. Everything that could take, then start now. She swallowed. Yes, sir. Within hours, the investigation expanded like wildfire. Security logs, access trails, email metadata system, overrides archived personnel files. Every circuit of Helion trembled under the floodlight of scrutiny. And slowly, the truth emerged, layer by layer, like peeling skin off a wound. Jonas Hale had come to Helion with a clean resume, but not a clean history. Buried beneath severance agreements and non-disclosure clauses were traces of his past at Lynx Tech. Records of consulting, notes from psychological assessments of staff, documents involving targeted pressure campaigns to shape team performance. Then came the thread connected to Gwen. Archived messages, deleted but recoverable. Her emails soaked in subtle venom, emails that Jonas had guided, drafted, or encouraged. He had fed her insecurities, turned her ambition into a weapon, used her resentment to craft the trap meant to bury Mina. More logs revealed forged documents originating from Jonas's workstation, altered metadata, falsified access entries, manipulated timestamps. He had found Helion's blind spots and exploited them with surgical precision. Jennifer reported all of it to Alexander late into the night. When she finished, the room fell silent. Alexander didn't sit, didn't blink. He only whispered, "I knew," not as evidence, as instinct. Then he stood. "Bring Jonas to my office," he said. His voice was calm, deadly calm. Now, Jonas walked into the office like he owned it. Even with 2 security officers at his back, he moved smoothly, shoulders relaxed, eyes bright with the confidence of a man certain he could talk his way out of anything. Alexander watched him enter, hands folded behind his back. "Close the door," he said. One guard shut it with a solid, echoing thud. Jonas raised an eyebrow. "You look like someone who didn't get much sleep." "You caused that," Alexander replied. Jonas smirked. "Emotional attachments do that to powerful men. Makes them sloppy." Alexander stepped closer. "You targeted her. Define targeting. You manipulated Gwen. You altered files. You sent the emails that accused her of espionage. You tampered with her car. Jonas tilted his head. Allegedly. We have proof. Then congratulations, Jonas said dryly. You've solved your little mystery. Alexander's restraint snapped like brittle glass. He slammed Jonas against the wall. The guards startled, but Alexander barked, "Leave." The door shut again. Jonas laughed breathlessly, unfazed even with Alexander's hand crushing his collar. "You're more predictable than I expected." Why Mina Alexander demanded. Why her Jonas went still. Then very slowly, a smile curved his lips, quiet and chilling. Because she was supposed to be mine. Alexander froze. Jonas's voice dropped into something intimate, almost gentle. When I met her, I saw brilliance, potential, fire. But she didn't look at me. His eyes flashed. She looked at you. Alexander tightened his grip. Jonas's laugh deepened. And that Jonas whispered was unforgivable. Alexander didn't punch him, didn't scream. Instead, his voice turned cold enough to freeze the air. "You're done." Jonas leaned forward, whispering, "You think this ends with a termination? You think exposing me saves her?" His smile sharpened. "You can't protect her from the world, Roth. Not even from yourself." Security dragged him out as he laughed, a hollow, echoing sound that felt like the last spark before something larger ignited. By noon, Helion issued a formal statement. Jonas Hale, terminated, under criminal investigation for fraud, internal corruption, and attempted sabotage. Mina Campbell, fully cleared of all allegations, recognized for critical contributions to Helion's strategic AI initiatives. The public announcement hit the news cycles instantly. Cameras swarmed outside the building. Reporters clamored for details. Social media split between outrage and admiration. Inside Helion, tension hung thick as smoke. But Mina walked into the press hall with her chin lifted, not in fear, but in something close to quiet triumph. This time she wasn't alone. Alexander was at her side. And though they didn't touch, not in view of cameras, not in the scrutiny of flashing lights, Mina felt the warmth of his hand brush the back of hers under the table, a hidden thread that grounded her heart. "Thank you all for coming," Alexander said to the crowd. "We're here today to correct a wrong." As he spoke, Mina glanced up at him. This wasn't the distant, polished executive the world knew. This was Alexander, the man who had held her through fear, who had confessed love in a hospital room, who had nearly shattered when he thought he'd lose her. He spoke of transparency, of accountability, of the need to build an environment where brilliance could thrive without fear. When he turned slightly toward Mina and added, "And no one's contributions will ever again be overshadowed or undermined." Her heart tightened in her chest. Cameras flashed. Questions fired. The conference stretched on like a marathon of noise. But through it all, Mina felt Alexander's presence like a steadying hand, not shielding her, not speaking for her, standing with her, as an equal, as a partner, as someone who saw her not as a woman he loved, but as a woman he respected. It was the first time Mina realized she no longer feared the whispers, no longer feared being underestimated, no longer feared stepping into the light beside him. When the conference ended, Mina and Alexander retreated behind the stage. She exhaled a long breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "You did incredible," Alexander murmured, smiling softly. "So did you." He hesitated, then brushed his fingers against hers, a question without words. She laced her hand into his. And for the first time, she didn't feel like she was hiding. For the first time, she didn't feel like she had to. This wasn't her fighting to survive. This wasn't him trying to protect her from shadows. This was the two of them together, stepping forward, into light, into truth, into the beginning of something neither of them had to fear anymore. Jonas's shadow was gone. But the future, that beautiful, uncertain, breathtaking future, was just starting to unfold. The day Helion finally returned to its steady rhythm, Alexander asked Mina to meet him on the rooftop. No agenda, no urgent meeting, just a quiet, almost shy request. After work, if you're free. The message was simple, but something underneath it thrummed like a cord pulled tight. Mina felt it in her chest the entire elevator ride up. As the doors opened, the world unfolded into sky. Helion's rooftop wasn't like others, no loud generators or clutter. It was a minimalist expanse of concrete and glass railings surrounded by the endless horizon of the city. The wind brushed softly along Mina's skin as she stepped out. Alexander stood near the edge, hands tucked in his pockets, suit jacket fluttering lightly. The sunset behind him washed the skyline in shades of lavender, rose, and gold. For a moment, Mina forgot how to breathe. He turned when he heard her footsteps, and the look on his face, soft, almost vulnerable, made her heart stutter. "You came," he said quietly. She smiled. "You asked." He reached out a hand. She placed hers in his without hesitation. His palm was warm, grounding, familiar. "Why here?" she asked gently. Alexander looked out across the glowing city before answering. "Because this is the only place in Helion where I ever felt like I could breathe." He paused. "And because the first time you walked into my office, I knew someday I'd want you to stand beside me up here." Mina's breath caught. He rarely spoke like this, open, unguarded, stripped of every shield he normally carried as CEO, as a man raised in a world where emotions equaled weakness. But now, he let everything fall away. "Mina," he said, turning fully toward her, "you've fought more battles than I can count. You've proven yourself in ways you never should have had to prove. You've endured judgment, lies, betrayal, and still you walk through this world with grace." Her eyes stung, but she blinked the tears back. "You're the strongest person I know," he continued, stepping closer until her heartbeat brushed his chest. "And yet, every time I look at you, I want to be stronger for you." "Alex!" Her voice cracked. He lifted a hand and brushed a curl from her cheek. "Let me be," he whispered. "Let me carry the battles now. Let me fight the shadows, so you never have to stand alone again." Then, before Mina could gather her breath, Alexander slowly lowered himself onto one knee. The world seemed to tilt. Wind rushed past her ears. The last ribbons of sunlight wrapped around him like a halo. And his hand trembled, just slightly, as he pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. "Mina Campbell," he said, opening it. Inside lay a ring cast in warm gold, a single diamond reflecting the entire sky. The same sky their story had grown under. The same sky that had watched their pain, their healing, their fear, and their first forbidden kiss. Mina Alexander whispered voice, shaking with something raw and real. "Will you marry me?" Her heart lurched so violently she had to hold her breath. Not because the proposal was grand, not because the ring sparkled like a promise written in light, but because of the man kneeling before her, the man who had broken her, fought for her, apologized for his mistakes, chosen her again and again. And now in front of the city he ruled, chose her with everything he had. Mina covered her mouth with both hands. She tried to speak. No sound came. Alexander's eyes softened with fear. "If it's too soon?" "No," she whispered. He froze. Mina knelt, mirroring him, their knees touching on the cool rooftop floor. "No," she repeated, letting her hands fall so he could see the truth in her eyes. "It's not too soon. Alex, I chose you long before you ever knew." He inhaled sharply. "That night," she continued, "when you showed up at my door unshaven, terrified, trying so desperately to fix things. You didn't say it, but I knew. I knew you were choosing me, and I chose you then." Her voice shook with emotion. "And I choose you now. Every part of you. The man the world sees, and the man only I get to see." A tear escaped down Alexander's cheek. He didn't wipe it away. "Mina." He exhaled her name like a prayer. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, Alex. I'll marry you." He closed his eyes just for a heartbeat, as if the weight of her answer was too much and not enough all at once. Then he opened them and reached for her hand, sliding the ring gently into place. It fit perfectly. He didn't wait, didn't question, didn't hesitate. Alexander leaned in and kissed her slow, reverent, filled with gratitude and longing, and something fierce that had been waiting so long to be spoken aloud. The wind swirled around them, lifting her curls, sweeping through his shirt, carrying the warmth of their kiss into the sky. When they parted, Mina rested her forehead against his. "This is the calmest moment I've ever felt," she whispered. "Because you're safe," Alexander murmured. "Because I'm home," she corrected. He held her tighter. Below them the city glowed. Above them the sky deepened into twilight. Around them everything felt still, like the world had stopped just long enough to let two hearts align perfectly. They stood, hand in hand, engaged beneath the first stars appearing in the night. Mina, Alexander said softly, lifting her fingers to his lips, "From the day you walked into my life, the world made sense." She smiled through tears. "And from the day you knelt in front of me, the world felt safe." He kissed her once more, gentle, unhurried. And for the first time since their story began, neither of them felt fear. Only certainty. Only love. Only the beginning of forever. The ocean shimmered like a sheet of glass beneath the afternoon sun. Light scattered across the waves, soft and warm, gilding the air with a quiet magic that made everything feel suspended, weightless, timeless, as if the world had stopped just to witness them. Mina stood behind the thin white veil of the bridal tent, her fingers resting lightly on the bouquet of ivory roses and wild lilies. The breeze played with the hem of her dress, brushing it gently against her legs. She could hear the soft murmur of guests settling into their seats, the calming crash of waves, and the distant voice of the officiant preparing the ceremony. She closed her eyes. There had been a time, too many times, when Mina wondered if she would ever be seen as more than a token, more than a mistake, more than a target of someone else's prejudice. Yet now the world felt small, safe, and full of light. She breathed deeply, then stepped toward the opening of the tent. When she emerged into the sunlight, gasps rose from the crowd. Her dress was simple, elegant silk that hugged her waist, flowing down into a cloud of soft tulle. Her natural curls framed her face like a crown of their own. The sun kissed her skin, turning it radiant. Zoe burst into tears the moment she appeared. Mina laughed, despite the lump forming in her throat. "Girl," Zoe sniffled loudly, "you better not walk past me too fast. I need to emotionally process this." Mina squeezed her friend's hand as she walked by, heart swelling with affection. Then her eyes lifted and landed on Alexander. He stood beneath the wooden floral arch overlooking the sea, wearing a charcoal suit that sharpened every line of him. But it wasn't the suit or the flowers or the scenery that struck her breathless. It was his expression. Alexander looked at her as though his entire world had just arrived, as though the ocean behind her bowed in reverence, as though he wasn't a man used to power and control, but someone who felt utterly undone. He inhaled deeply when she finally reached him. "You." He swallowed the word, barely a whisper. "You're breathtaking." A nervous, disbelieving warmth bloomed in her chest. You clean up pretty well yourself. The officiant chuckled softly, clearing his throat. We'll begin, shall we? Guests settled. The wind quieted, and the universe seemed to lean in. Vows under the open sky. Alexander took Mina's hands in his thumbs brushing against her knuckles. His voice was low, steady, yet edged with emotion. Mina Campbell, he began. You walked into my life like a quiet storm. I tried to resist, tried to pretend that I wasn't already moving toward you. But you, he exhaled. You made me want to be a better man, and you made me believe I could be. Her eyes welled instantly. He continued, voice tightening. You showed me courage. You showed me resilience. You showed me love. Love that isn't easy or gentle, but fierce and honest. And I vow to honor that love every day of my life. Mina's heart ached in the most beautiful way. When it was her turn, she had to steady her breath. Alexander Roth, she said softly, you scared me the day you first called me into your office. Not because you were powerful, but because somehow, even then, you saw me. A tear slipped down her cheek. You challenged me, frustrated me, hurt me, and you healed me too. You never tried to make me smaller. You stood with me even when the world turned its back. And I vow to stand with you, to choose you, to build the life we both deserve. Alexander closed his eyes, as if her words were a wave hitting him full force. The officiant smiled with warmth. By the power vested in me, I pronounce you husband and wife. Alexander didn't wait. He pulled Mina gently toward him and kissed her soft at first, almost reverent, then deeper, fuller, like he was pouring his entire soul into her. Cheers erupted. The ocean roared behind them. Zoe shouted, finally. And Alexander laughed into the kiss. A new dawn begins. The reception took place on the sand. Lanterns glowed like floating stars. Music drifted over the ocean breeze, and laughter spilled across the beach. Helion's staff, many of whom once doubted her, stood in awe of Mina's quiet elegance, her intelligence, her undeniable place by Alexander's side. But Mina didn't care about their stares anymore. Tonight she danced barefoot in the sand, hand in hand with the man who had become her sanctuary. During the first slow song, Alexander rested his forehead against hers. Wife, he murmured, tasting the word. Mina's heart fluttered. Husband. He smiled like he'd never known joy until now. 3 months later, rain tapped softly against the windows of their penthouse. Mina curled on the sofa wearing one of Alexander's oversized shirts, her bare feet tucked beneath her. She held something small and white in her hand, something that made her breath tremble. When Alexander walked in, loosening his tie, he noticed her expression immediately. Mina, are you okay? She looked up at him, eyes wide, lips trembling with a secret she could no longer hold. Alex. Her voice cracked with a smile. We're not alone anymore. For one long moment he froze. Then his gaze fell to the pregnancy test in her hand, then back to her. His chest rose sharply once, twice, and his eyes began to shine. Mina, he whispered, stepping forward as though in a dream. Are you sure? She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. I'm pregnant. Alexander knelt in front of her, hands shaking as he touched her stomach, still flat, but carrying everything that mattered. A laugh escaped him, raw and joyous, and disbelieving. A baby, he breathed. Our baby. Mina cupped his face, brushing away the tear that slipped down his cheek. Are you ready for someone who'll definitely inherit your stubbornness? God help us both, he whispered, pressing a kiss to her palm. But if they're anything like you, I'll be the luckiest man alive. He wrapped his arms around her, holding her as though she were the center of every universe he'd ever known. and she held him back because he was hers, and she was his. And this life they built was no longer fragile. It was growing, literally, the beginning of forever. From a message sent to the wrong man, to wounds that cut deep, to love that rebuilt what was broken, to a wedding under the sun, to the whisper of new life inside her. Their story had never been simple, but it was real. It was powerful, and it was theirs. Mina rested her head against Alexander's chest, listening to the steady beat beneath her ear, the same rhythm that had once calmed her in moments of pain. Now it lulled her into peace. "Alex," she whispered, "yes, thank you for choosing us." He kissed her hair. "Always," he murmured, and again, every single day. Outside, the rain continued to fall softly, gentle, cleansing, like the world blessing the beginning of a new family. And inside their home, love grew quietly, fiercely, beautifully. The story didn't end here. It was only the first breath of forever.